So if you don't know about Lil Wayne's contractual situation, then you may need to get out of that rock that you call a bed that you need to, and get on the internet, because he has been under intense contractual battles with Birdman, the owner of Cash Money Records, which is the label that he's signed to. Now, it's this basically all stemmed from 2014, when he had announced the Carter V to actually be released in 2015, around May time, if I'm not mistaken. And this has been stored. I mean, he released the hit singles "Believe Me" under that, as well as other hits, to anticipate this album, but it didn't happen.
That was the thing. That was actually the thing. The thing was, the music is almost 7 years old, and so it was almost like, I even had to ask some of the artists, are you okay with your verse?
Now, there's a lot of storytelling aspects in this album, which I felt it was really well done. Lil Wayne did not leave anything unturned, and as you delve into the album a lot more, you actually tend to find out that this guy is actually placed in that I was even thinking of taking his own life because of the external factors, such as the contractual situation that he had with Birdman, as well as a lot of the personal problems that was going in his life, because he was also facing jail time in around this time. He was also, his life was being shot at by allegedly by Young Thug as well as Birdman. These guys were targeting him. So to start off the album like that, a really emotive, as well as Exorcist Tentacion appearing in Don't Cry, and you are seeing a parallel here with one that's actually alive, and pretty much is alive by the skin of his teeth when you're considering all these things that were happening in his life, and one that's lost his life tragically. This parallel really makes you connect with the album immediately. The most standout track though in the entire album was Mona Lisa, and this featured Kendrick Lamar. The way that Lil Wayne approached this story itself was uncanny. I mean, imagine him as a narrator, as well as the man that is causing the girl to cheat, and then you bring in Kendrick, who is the man that is trying to plead with the woman that is cheating with Wayne. However, I'm digressing from the point. The point I'm making is the storytelling in this track does give you an indication of how rich the album, and also it makes me angry as well, because Lil Wayne didn't really try to create more stories like this. He just made filler tracks. So with Mona Lisa, right, this is regarding a woman's deceptive ways, like for example. So it starts off with Lil Wayne literally narrating and setting the tone for what's about to happen, and then the next verse he goes into him being a player, especially with when he said that he treats a woman who pretends to be an angel, and then he goes on to say that I'm gonna take off her her halo and use it to play a frisbee. The message that this is sending is, I'm not sure if you can call Kendrick the nice guy, because I reading over the lyrics and reading over what he's been through, it doesn't seem to have offered insight to what Kendrick could be doing. At the same time, it does shows that the player does win in the end, because he gets the girl, while this guy is left suffering. So it's a stock message to basically know who you're dealing with, because there are some Decepticons out there. So for a story aspect, I gave it a 6.8 out of 8. Like I said, if this album wasn't filled with a lot of filler tracks, if it wasn't filled with songs that didn't really have much content to offer, and it varies in tones and etc., there's not much you can do. So a 6.8 to me was quite fair, and it was like that because of tracks like Don't Cry, as well as Mona Lisa, as well as Can't Be Broken. Those tracks right there is what really cemented me and think the content in this album is actually worth listening to. However, it's just a shame that he didn't really make every content like that, as rich as that. there was a ton of skippable tracks. At least 8 tracks I could say you can skip, and it's not that interesting.
Lil Wayne has teamed up with Neiman Marcus for his first ever Young Money merch capsule collection.
For the local content of the album, Lil Wayne, he was on the attack a lot. And I can understand based on what he's been going through in his life, and based on the criticisms he's been receiving for him being single-handedly from the old heads anyway, for him being single-handedly the guy to destroy hip-hop, quote unquote. Because a lot of people take on after his style. You have Lil Pump, you have Lil Xan, you have Lil Yachty, you have so many Littles that take on after his style, that they rap like him, and he even acknowledges that. He actually says it in a track Dedicate, where he's saying he's the one that has caused you all to dress like this, to think like this, to actually rap like this. He is the one that has been showing dedication, that has been doing this for the longest, and he has been doing it for the longest. He's been here, believe it or not, since 1991. So he's not a kid in this game. He's actually a veteran, and he had a kid when he was a kid. So literally, Lil Wayne's stake in this game should be merited. And in all fairness, I tend to agree with the way that he approached this album. I felt he wasn't given the due credit from the old heads, as well as the new heads as well. He's been flexing his lyrical muscles all through this album. Open Letter, Can't Be Broken was the one track that I felt that he's been that he's flexed its lyrical muscles the most. He felt like he was freestyling. That and Dedicate as well. He felt like he was freestyling in these tracks, and the metaphors that was used, the style of Wayne. You can tell that even though many have tried to do what he's done, they have not been able to copy his style, and they have not been able to copy how consistent he's been in delivering this style of rap. So with this, I gave it a 6.8 out of 7. I really believe that this album is lyrically rich, and you won't be disappointed if you're looking for a lyrically rich album where you're being sent on a wild goose chase, if I must say. Like, so, if you want to hear a great story being delivered in a weird and crazy way, Lil Wayne is the only person that can do this properly. So you won't be disappointed if you want to hear lyrics in this album.
My life matter, especially to my.
Now, for the tone of the album, it wasn't as consistent as I thought. I thought he would have a nice, clear and consistent tone. This wasn't the case. He let me down a lot when it came to the other half of the album. After you passed the 14th track, Perfect Stranger, this was the one track that really made me believe that this guy, he did not really, like, I don't know how he said it to his tracks, but this would have been perfect if it was just left alone, or to come after the Dark Side of the Moon. Because it's kind of this very similar story, and it would have painted a different picture, and a different perspective to probably a prerequisite to the Dark Side of the Moon, where Perfect Stranger being he was wondering, he was in bed wondering how this woman feels towards him, and then Dark Side of the Moon is a story where the world has ended and he's with this one woman and he loves her a lot. So those two could have paralleled, and that would have flowed beautifully. However, that doesn't mean that the other parts of the album didn't flow. The way that it went from Mona Lisa to What About Me, I felt that Kendrick's character was being expanded upon when it came to What About Me, and you would definitely hear this in the story, especially when you have him talk about a lot more in detail how women do play games, and how he basically had to learn from it. And this, like I said, this presented with Kendrick's character, this presented a lot of growth with him, and this flow, it was quite healthy. It transitioned beautifully. Overall, I gave it a 3 out of 5, mainly because of the filler tracks that I had to say, you know what, it's average at best. It's really an average kind of style, average kind of tone, because like I said, it was very inconsistent when it got near to the end. However, I'm glad he did bring the album full circle with the track Let It All Work Out, because that's exactly what it did. In the end, you can see Lil Wayne leaning more and more to his faith and leaning more and more to what the mom was instructing him, and it was good how he brought his mom back to segue and leave the album, and he said, I'm out. Which obviously meant two things: he's out of the contract with Cash Money, as well as the album is over.
That I shot myself. The police, I was the only person in the house.
Right.
Police came through there. They knocked the doors down. I was on the floor.
Right.
They jumped over. They all hopped over me and went looking for the drugs and looking for this and that. It was a white police that came, ran up there and stopped and said, "What the are y'all doing? Do y'all not see this baby on the floor?" And they said, "We called the ambulance. The ambulance." Say, "Ambulance, he has a hole in his chest." He picked me up. He brought me to the hospital himself. He was white.
The instrumentation, it had its moments. Uproar was the one track that I felt was really on point in terms of beats. Dope Niggas as well. I like the way that he was sampling in there. The tracks, I'm not gonna complain on the beats. I think he done a good well in inserting his beats, but the quality could have been better when he got to near the other side of the album, which would be have to hit us. I really felt like he really let it slack on the beats. Were not up to scratch, or were not that good in this side of the album. It was quite generic, and it was quite underwhelming. If I'm being honest, it didn't really do much to capture you as a listener. Like I didn't really connect with most of the tracks in this part of the album. The only part that I was able to connect story wise was just how he brought the story full circle, how he reinforced the message of the album, which was I'm out now of this contract, and I am somebody to be messed with, with the local display that he's been showing throughout the album. So because of this, I actually gave it a 3 out of 5. Again, it was average, and that's the best I could do. Okay, the final verdict for this album. Right, it was way too long. 23 tracks was not needed, and most of the stories, it was just filler after filler after filler after filler. Does this mean it was a bad album? No, I believe Lil Wayne ended the album beautifully. I just don't think it was his best album. I think it was worth the wait, and I think if you do go out and you do get it, it's definitely a great purchase, and you will be thoroughly enjoyed. It's just when it got after Dope Niggas, it really shifted in tone. It just took you a whole different way. Though it doesn't mean that it wasn't a great body of work. I gave it overall a 77 out of 100. It wasn't his best work, in my opinion. It's still a good score. It just wasn't his best work. I personally felt like he can do better than this.